The midnight visitor. I heard the bells, and my whole heart lifted. The soft chiming from the roof made me smile before I even opened my eyes. I thought he was finally here. Santa. The one I stayed awake for every year. I slipped out of bed and crept down the hallway. Bare feet. Cold floor. Trying not to wake the house. I wanted to see him just once. Even a glimpse. The fire had burned low. Only a thin glow left in the hearth. I hid beside the wall and peeked around the corner, waiting for something magical. For a moment, the chimney stayed quiet. Then the ash shifted. A soft thump. A breath of cold air. And a shape began to lower itself into our living room. I remember freezing. His suit was red, but not the bright kind from storybooks. It was dark. Heavy. Stained in places I didn't want to understand. The white trim hung in clumps that looked stiff and rusted. His boots glistened like they had walked through melted frost, mixed with something darker. He did not move like someone bringing gifts. He moved like something searching. I pressed my hand over my mouth. He lifted his head slowly, not in a jolly, curious way. More like an animal tasting the air for anything awake. They say he only takes the ones who are not asleep. They say he comes when the fire dies too early. They say he is hungry. I never believed those stories until that night. He stepped out of the hearth, shaking cinders from his twisted coat. A faint bell chimed from somewhere deep inside the fabric. Not cheerful, just a single, lonely ring that felt like the warning before a storm. He walked through the living room in slow, heavy steps. His head turned toward the hallway, toward the place where I hid. My heart stopped, my breath held, my legs trembling against the cold floor. I backed up 1 inch, then another. The boards creaked under my heel. His head snapped toward the sound. That was enough for me. I ran. Silent steps. Tears already in my eyes. Down the hallway and into my bedroom. I shut my door without a click and crawled into bed, shaking so hard the mattress shifted under me. I forced my breaths to slow. Deep and steady. The way sleeping children breathe. The way safe children breathe. I prayed he would think I was asleep. I prayed he would think I was dreaming. I prayed he wouldn't hear me, because I knew he took the ones who were awake. The bells jingled softly as he moved through the house. Room to room, slow and patient, listening for any breath that did not sound right. He paused outside my door. The shadow under the crack grew darker. The boards groaned under his weight. I could hear the fabric of his coat creak as he leaned close to the wood. The bells settled into silence. I held my breath so long it hurt. My eyes burned. My throat felt tight. Every part of me begged to gasp, but I stayed still. He waited, listening, sensing, deciding. A cold draft slipped through the gap at the bottom of the door. It moved across my arm like a warning. Then his shadow shifted. He moved on. The bells chimed faintly again, drifting down the hall. He searched the guest room. My parents' room. The living room again. The kitchen. Every corner where someone might be awake. And then the bells faded, rising up the chimney, returning to the frozen dark. I lay there until the sun touched the curtains. I found out later that a boy from the next town never woke up that morning. The grown-ups whispered about it for weeks, said the fire in his house went out too soon, said he must have been awake at the wrong moment. No one talks about it now. No one wants to. But every Christmas Eve, we keep the fire burning tall and bright until dawn. Wood stacked high, flames snapping and alive, never letting it die to embers, because the bells still come back every winter. soft at first, just a reminder, and I know what waits behind them. Not Santa, not joy, something hungry that walks the rooftops in the coldest hour of night, something that searches for the ones who are still awake.
Vanilla, written by Dana, a Whispered Realms story. She was called Vanilla, not because it was her real name, but because that's how she smelled: warm, sweet, and comforting. She wore it like a halo, soft enough to draw people close, intoxicating enough to make them stay. Everyone liked her. She smiled at strangers, tipped baristas, and left little notes for her roommate on the fridge. 22, newly on her own, and finally learning what freedom felt like. But freedom has a way of catching someone's eye. He noticed her first at the coffee shop. A flash of gold hair, blue eyes that never met his, the faint trail of vanilla drifting behind her when she passed. He started timing his mornings to hers, a few steps closer each day. When she crossed the street, he crossed too. When she stopped to tie her shoe, he stopped to watch. And when she smiled at the barista again, he wondered what it would take for her to smile at him. He learned her patterns when she left, when she came home, which lights stayed on at night. She was soft, predictable, safe, until she wasn't. One morning, she didn't show. Not at the cafe, not on the street, not anywhere. He waited. All day, all week. Then one night, he caught it again, faint, familiar, drifting through his open window. Vanilla. He smiled. Maybe she'd come by. But the scent didn't fade. It grew thicker, heavier, until it filled every inch of the room. It clung to his skin, his hair, his breath. He scrubbed himself raw, trying to get it off. Days passed. The smell only deepened, no longer sweet, but spoiled. Sickly. Like sugar left too long in the heat, he stopped eating. Couldn't sleep. Every breath tasted like her. He started hearing her voice a whisper, soft and close, saying his name, sometimes laughing, sometimes humming. He told himself it was guilt or grief. But guilt doesn't knock on your door at 3 a.m. When he opened it, no one was there. Just the scent pouring in, suffocating, swallowing the air whole. The next morning, the neighbor across the hall called the police. His door had been open all day, the apartment lights still burning. Inside, the air was thick enough to choke on. The walls dripped with melted candle wax. And the smell, sweet, rotten vanilla, coating everything. He was gone. On the table, a single note. She's here. I can't breathe. And beneath it, in a delicate, unfamiliar hand, everyone likes vanilla. The orchard at the edge of dusk. When Claire arrived at her grandmother's farm, dusk had already settled. That strange in-between hour when everything feels caught between waking and sleep. The house slouched under the weight of years, windows fogged, the porch warped from storms and silence. But the orchard still looked untouched. Hundreds of trees stood in perfect rows, glowing faintly beneath the fading light. Apples, round and flawless, gleamed like glass ornaments. None had fallen. None ever did. Her grandmother used to say the trees were special, that they never died, never rotted, never let go of what they loved. As a kid, Claire thought that was comforting. Now, it just sounded like a warning she hadn't understood. She stepped through the gate and the air changed. It smelled like sugar and soil and rain, but underneath it, something faint, metallic, earthy, almost like blood. A low hum drifted through the branches, so soft she couldn't tell if she was hearing it or feeling it. The first apple she picked was warm against her palm. When she bit into it, the taste was strange, not sweet, not sour, just familiar. Then came the flash. A girl running barefoot between the rows, her grandmother's laughter, the feel of a storm wind heavy with smoke. None of it was hers, yet it all felt like something she'd once lived. She dropped the apple, heart pounding, but it didn't fall. It hung in the air for a moment, then rolled gently back toward the roots. She should have left then, but she didn't. Each step pulled her deeper into the orchard, as if the ground itself wanted her closer. Every apple she passed seemed to turn slightly, facing her. She told herself it was the wind, the trick of twilight, but when she looked back, the path was gone. She tried to call out, "Gran?" But the sound barely carried. The trees leaned in, branches brushing her shoulders like hands. The hum deepened until it became a voice. Hundreds of voices, layered and low, whispering from inside the bark. Stay. The roots beneath her feet shifted, softening, sinking. Her shoes vanished into the soil. The sweetness in the air thickened until it was hard to breathe. She tried to run. The ground opened. She fell, not far but deep enough that the world above dimmed to a blur. The soil pressed around her like a pulse, warm and steady. The apples above glowed faintly, their light filtering through the dirt. Sleep, the orchard whispered. You're home now. Her body relaxed against the pull. The scent of apples filled her lungs as the soil rose higher, sealing her in. She should have screamed. She didn't. It felt almost peaceful, like returning somewhere she'd always belonged. The earth closed, and the hum became a lullaby. Then, silence. When Claire opened her eyes again, she was upstairs in her grandmother's old bed. Morning light slipped through the curtains. The house looked cleaner, newer, alive. She felt rested, calm, like she hadn't slept that well in years. Outside the window, the orchard shimmered beneath the soft dawn. She smiled. She'd missed this place. When she stepped outside, the air was sweet and still. The trees swayed lightly, their branches dipping as she passed, almost like they were greeting her. She walked between them barefoot, fingers brushing the bark. The hum followed her, softer now, rhythmic, steady. And when she reached the heart of the orchard, she stopped. The wind whispered through the leaves. Stay. She nodded once, smiling faintly. She didn't remember the city or the drive or why she'd ever left. None of it mattered anymore. This was home. It always had been.